The movie opens as we meet our protagonist, George Lass. She narrates that she died 5 years ago at 18, killed by a falling toilet seat from a deorbiting space station. After her sudden death, she became a Grim Reaper, responsible for collecting the souls of the dying. Her boss, Rube Soffer, gives each Reaper a post-it note with the name, time, and place of an impending death. Rube strictly forbids interfering with human lives or altering fate. In the next scene, we see an old man attempting suicide with a bizarre machine, only to receive a voicemail saying he's won a $5,000 genius grant. Elated, he rejoices her until it's too late. A grotesque creature appears, which George calls a graveling, whose job is to trigger death-causing events. The old man dies, and George collects his soul, welcoming him to the afterlife. The following morning, George visits Starville House Cafe copyright, their usual meeting spot that recently burned down. It's where the Reapers gather each day to discuss work. She joins fellow Reapers, Daisy, an aspiring actress, Roxy, a tough cop, and Mason, a carefree thief. Since soul collecting doesn't pay, they all have day jobs. They're worried when Rube doesn't show up until a suited man in a limo suddenly picks them up. The group is brought to an upscale restaurant where they meet a wealthy businessman named Cameron, who reveals he died in the 9/11 attacks. He announces he's their new boss and vaguely claims Rube has moved on. He hands out sleek smartphones and showers them with luxury. Cameron says he won't meet them daily, but will send reaping assignments via text. Mason and Daisy are impressed, but Roxy and George remain skeptical and miss Rube. Later, while driving to work, George gets irritated by a slow-moving car and flips off the driver, only to realize it's her mother with her sister Reggie, who is learning to drive. They don't recognize Georgie. Reapers look different to the living. Elsewhere, Daisy arrives at a salon to reap a man's soul. After she touches him, he chokes on candy and dies. She's supposed to guide him to the afterlife, but Cameron urgently reassigns her, leaving the soul lost. That afternoon, George is at her temp agency job when she receives a task from Cameron. She rushes to the location, but a teen named Hudson is already hit by a car and rushed to the hospital. George misses the soul and is confused by the timing. Later, George finds the Reapers partying at Cameron's lavish event. Daisy is thrilled about a promised Broadway role. George tries to explain the mystery, but no one listens except Roxy, who shares her doubts. Cameron then charms Roxy with a promotion, swaying her too. George later visits the hospital disguised as a doctor. Hudson is alive but in pain, and when she touches him, nothing happens. His parents walk in, and George slips out. She then sees Reggie visiting the hospital and follows her outside. Reggie tosses photos into a trash bin and George discovers they were secretly dating. George returns to the party, finds Mason passed out, and accidentally walks in on Daisy and Cameron in bed. Disgusted, she finds Roxy and vents. But Roxy, now content with her promotion, brushes her off. The next morning, George shows up at their meeting spot, but no one comes. The other Reapers are off breaking rules. Roxy saves a drowning man, earning a medal. Mason lets a robbery happen, gets shot without injury, and steals money. Daisy lashes out at people she dislikes. Days later, Daisy performs in her play but flops. Mason gives her a rose, but she's more upset that no limo picked her up. She goes home and yells at Cameron, who mocks her acting and ends their fling. At the salon, Daisy realizes she abandoned a soul and now the place is haunted. She finally leads the spirit to the afterlife, setting it free. Roxy returns to the scene where she previously saved the drowning man. He's now in a horrific accident. She realizes her mistake and tearfully reaps him. Meanwhile, George talks with Reggie at her job and learns about her heartbreak over Hudson. George encourages her to visit him before it's too late. At the hospital, George prepares to reap Hudson, but Reggie shows up and confronts her. George finally admits she's her sister. At first, Reggie is skeptical, but George reveals childhood memories only she could know. The sisters reconnect. The next day, Reggie arrives with her luggage, wanting to live with George. She shares how their dad left and she can't connect with their mom. George warns her it's dangerous, but reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, Daisy, Mason, and Roxy realize Cameron is corrupt and only uses them. Missing Rube's leadership, they begin plotting against him. They confront Cameron before his trip, and he reveals he's been withholding souls on purpose, hoping their mistakes will trigger evil elsewhere. Roxy punches him, knocking him out. They decide to get rid of him, though killing a dead man proves tricky. George and Reggie visit Hudson's parents, who express gratitude and reveal Hudson spoke fondly of Reggie. George urges her sister to say goodbye, but Reggie can't bear it and runs out. George reaps Hudson, who appears as a spirit. He wants to speak to Reggie, but George insists it would only cause pain. He asks her to tell Reggie he's sorry, then fades away. In the car, Reggie, heartbroken, accelerates recklessly, threatening to end her life. George urges her to do it, but the fear eventually snaps Reggie back to reality. She chooses life. George explains that death is inevitable but not now. Reggie still has a life to live. They part with tears. Elsewhere, the Reapers try everything to kill Cameron, drowning, shooting, torture, but nothing works. Later, Reggie visits George's grave. Their mom arrives, and Reggie tells her about meeting George, but isn't believed. She says she wants to leave town and start over, and her mom agrees. That night, George finds her team burning Cameron's dismembered body. When nothing else worked, they chopped and burnt him. Unsure what to do with the ashes, they worry he might return. At George's boss's cat funeral the next day, she secretly mixes Cameron's ashes into the urn. The container is launched into orbit. The Reapers feel relieved their corrupt boss is finally gone and wonder who will lead them next. In the final scene, George watches her mom and sister pack up and leave their home. Reggie spots her and smiles one last time. As they drive off, post-it notes rain from the sky, just like Rube's old assignments. George realizes she's now the new leader of the Reapers, left standing in awe of her unexpected destiny. Make sure to subscribe and let's hit 1000 likes or 100 comments to unlock